the Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Space 1999, just a few of the many creations of our next guest. Considered a master of the marionette technology, he and his crew developed a technique known as super marionation. It is such a thrill to have Gerry Anderson on now, live via satellite from Los Angeles. Welcome to the Screensavers, Mr. Anderson.
Hello.
Great to talk to you. I got to tell you, I grew up, and I'm sure you get this every time, I grew up watching Supercar.
Really?
That was my show. Was that the first one you did?
No. The first one I did was called Torchy the Battery Boy.
Wait a minute. This is Supercar, and actually, I didn't realize, but these marionettes are fairly large, and the Supercar itself is as big as you.
Well, the marionettes were about 18 inches high, and the sets were roughly 1/3 life size.
Yeah, they're big.
But, I mean, you mentioned Torchy. In fact, I've made, to date, 17 television series comprising some 600 episodes.
That's a truly remarkable record, especially in this, this business. Torchy the Battery Boy. What was that all about?
That was about a guy called Torchy who was a battery boy.
Was he a flashlight? What was he?
Well, I mean, it was a very early show. It was sort of preschool and something I wasn't really very proud of.
Oh, but I think it's got a great name, if nothing else. Maybe we'll have to bring that back to TechTV. All your stuff, though, has a real cult status. I mean, people fall in love with it. They remember it from their childhood, or they discover it later. And I know there's DVD versions of Thunderbirds. I mean, this stuff has really got a life of its own. Are you surprised by that?
Well, I'm not surprised. I'm utterly amazed. I mean, because, just as an example, when I first made Thunderbirds,
yeah.
It obviously went out on the air for the first time, and about 6 months later they ran it again, and I was stunned. I thought, I don't understand, because the show's been run. Why are they showing it again? But of course this is before repeats had been invented.
And here we are, 30-some years later, repeating it again.
Well, not only here, but I mean all over the world.
Yeah.
It's been shown. As a matter of fact, in the UK, it's been on the air in BBC Two, the Cartoon Channel, and now it's on Sky, and it's coming back on BBC Two. So, it's a show that never seems to die.
Any theories about why that is?
Well, first of all, there's no other show that has the same visual appearance.
That's true.
Secondly, it's about saving life, albeit that it has all the death and jeopardy and destruction that kids seem to like to watch.
Yep.
Family atmosphere with Jeff Tracy and the boys. A bit of fun, especially for Americans, I think, with Parker and Penelope and their...
It's very campy, yeah.
Well, that's right. I wouldn't have described it in that way, but yeah, I guess you're right.
If you think about it, it's kind of... I got my kid, there's a full-length movie that you did of the Thunderbirds, and I bought it for my son, and he loves it. He's 7 years old. He just loves it.
Yeah. Well, that's unimportant. What about you? Did you?
And I do too. We watch it together.
Good.
Now you did some interesting thing. I mean, this was in many ways a technological breakthrough. For instance, and I never understood how you do this. The marionettes are lip synced to their speech. How do you do that?
Well, in fact, we invented a system where the marionettes would speak automatically to the pre-recorded dialogue. So we would record the show first, and then we would play back the particular scene we were shooting on the studio floor for the puppeteers to mime to. But we invented some electronics, which meant that as we played the dialogue, the puppets' mouths would open and shut in sync with the dialogue.
No kidding.
Which, of course, well, in fact, it really was a precursor to disco lights.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the sound would make something pulse or something like that, and the mouth would move.
You've got it.
Oh, very clever idea. I mean, it added somehow to the realism of the whole thing. Now, you did start doing real actors, live human beings. Was that difficult to make that move? Well, did you want to kind of start moving their hands and their and their mouth by strings?
I was going to say, you describe them as live actors. Some of them I had my doubts about that.
No one's sure about Martin Landau, but the rest...
No, I'm teasing. No, come on.
I'm teasing, of course.
Martin Landau was terrific.
He was
talking about Space 1999.
And one of the most wonderful shows, and I grew up on that one too and loved it very much.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah. Martin Landau, Barbara Bain. There's a picture of the cast.
Yes.
it was right around Star Trek time, but I think in many ways kind of very different from Star Trek, and I think a great show. Has that been brought back as well?
Yes, that's back on DVD here.
That's great.
And the interesting thing is that these shows are very old, but they've been restored. I mean, somebody in your previous interview was talking about restoration.
Yeah.
But these shows have been restored literally frame by frame. And what's interesting to me is that they look better in terms of quality today than the day that they were made. Because, of course, when they were first shown, they were shown on old type TV sets.
Right.
TV sets now are much better.
And they were shot on film, yes?
Oh, they were shot on 35 millimeter, just the same as movies.
Right. So there is actually quite a bit they can do to take that film and make the colors brighter, make it look better, and really.
Well, of course, color negatives tend to fade, and also the shows have been distributed throughout the world, so many prints have been made from the negatives, and they were beaten up.
Right.
But they all went through computers, and all the blemishes have been removed, and all the sparkle, and as you say, the colors have been restored.
Yeah.
The soundtrack's been tended to and made up to date, so even on the big screen, they look terrific.
Yeah, they look fabulous on TechTV. As you know, we're running the whole series, and they look gangbusters, and we thank you so much for joining us and reminding me of Supercar.
You remember Supercar?
I do, Professor Beaker, with the hair weave, the comb over. Yeah.
You're giving your age away.
I am. I grew up to it. Gerry, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
We really enjoy the show, and we're glad to be airing it on TechTV. If you want to learn more about Gerry, the history of super marionation, and the Thunderbirds, head to thescreensavers.com.